Welcome to the Change Life Destiny podcast, where healthcare is being reimagined one conversation at a time. We spotlight the people, innovations, and ideas moving us from sick care to self-care and from reactivity to true prevention. A place to connect, learn, and build a new future together. Get inspired at changelifedestiny.com. Let's dive in. Welcome back, everyone, to the Change Life podcast series. This is Stephanie, and today I am with the ever brilliant Dr. Richard Drucker from Drucker Labs. Dr. Drucker, thank you so much for being on with us today.
Always a pleasure. Always.
We love having you and seeing your face. And for those that are just hearing our voice, we love having his voice on too. Okay, so let's start, Dr. Drucker, with a little bit about your story. Where in the world did you come up with this idea? How did you find yourself in this space where we are in this health space today? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Stephanie, that's the question of the day, of the month, of the year, really of my life, to be honest. It has been a process. It has been a journey, just like everything in our world. Unfortunately, when I was young, I was very young. I was about 10 years of age, and my mom had passed away. So at a very young age, it was obviously devastating, and I had to certainly learn to fend and do things for myself. However, the nature of her disease was sort of interesting because she had a very interesting autoimmune disease. It was her body was sort of attacking itself. And so I didn't really get to know my mom too much when I was young because she was sick a lot, sick in the hospital, etc. And I really, I did the best I could. I was very athletic as I was growing up. I got involved with sports. I was doing things that most kids do. And then I hit probably, I'm going to say my mid to late 20s. And everything at that time was really going fantastic. And by the time I hit 26, 27, though, I started feeling a little bit off. My energy was dropping. My I started getting sick a lot with all kinds of colds and flus and etc. And unfortunately, by the time I hit my late 20s, I really didn't feel well. And I started struggling. And I started struggling in school. I was trying to finish school at that time. I was obviously trying to get into a relationship. I mean, there was just lots of, that's a very active sort of part of a person's life.
Oh, sure.
And so when I hit my late 20s and began to slow down and start to feel sick, I started dropping weight. I started running fevers, sore throats. So it was just test after test after test. Stephanie, I was really periodically okay and then periodically not okay. By the time I got into my 30s, not good. Yeah, it's my life, so sometimes I don't talk about this side of my life very often at all.
Yeah.
I struggle with this side to talk about it. But I got down to about 115, 116
Oh, my
pounds.
goodness.
It was a very difficult period. It was one that was obviously very sad. It was one that had all kinds of long-term side problems associated with it. By the time I hit my like 32, 33, they literally said, look, you've got 6 to 9 months. If you're lucky, we'll keep you comfortable. We will never leave your side. We will make sure you are, taken care of as much as you can be taken care of. I fought, like, for example, I had 104, 105 fever. So I had a group of people that would come over. They would dunk me in a tub. So if I was running 105, they would make the tub 104 and a half to 104, like a half degree lower than where I was. And they would run shifts like during the night and the next day. And I got to the point where I could not ingest food. I was liquid based. I was vomiting constantly. I couldn't hold in anything. I couldn't hold. I had some water, but I struggled just the same. Eventually, at first I was okay, but eventually I started struggling even to have water. So what I realized at that point was that nothing less than a miracle. I obviously needed something very quickly. I'm about 30, I should be like 33 and a half, like just under 34 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I remember it was close to my 34th birthday, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do now? And what we realized is that I had a very similar autoimmune phenomenon to what my mom had. So my natural killer cells were attacking my polymononuclear, basically my white blood cells,
Wow.
and my body had no ability to resolve it. My body was just literally breaking down. I think a good word might be like I was wasting. I was wasting. So anyway, I don't know if you remember this, but back in the day, we we had, obviously you would remember, we had cassettes.
Yeah.
So right, so
Yeah.
it was before the advent of the beautiful CD,
Yeah.
which now is sort of obsolete, but back in the day that was like the big thing once we went from cassettes to CD. But a dear friend of mine literally came to me and he said, and I don't know why I'm talking about this right now. I don't side of the
I'm
equation.
bringing it out in you. Just let it flow.
I rarely, my son is going to be blown. I rarely talk about this side. It's a little painful, a little
Mm.
unnerving. It's okay, but it's my life, and
Yeah.
it actually happened to me. So I sort of relive a little bit of it. I literally, a dear friend of mine gave me a cassette tape. Well, funny. So you asked the question, and here you go. Are you ready for the answer?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. So he gave me a cassette tape, and it was ridiculous tape about some guy by the name of Linus Pauling. Linus
Right.
Pauling was a two-time Nobel Prize winner. I don't know why he gave it to me, but he said, "Look, you probably want to listen to this tape." And Linus Pauling, two-time Nobel Prize winner, was basically called in to speak to Congress. I believe it was the 72nd Congress second session. They had called him in, and they basically just said, "Look, could you give us your professional opinion as to why disease is manifesting at such a high rate? Even though modern medicine is really just like, wow, it has exploded. We have all kinds of new surgical procedures. We have incredible drugs. We have done all these amazing things. So could you share with us, why do you think we're sort of losing the battle with AIDS? We're
Mm.
losing to autoimmune diseases. We are seeing a plethora of pathology. So could you help us understand?" And basically, Pauling, his comment was absolutely, in my life, I don't know about in yours, but there's certainly some things called trajectory changers.
100%. I
So,
Yes.
Stephanie, maybe it was when you met your partner or the love of your life. Maybe it was when you had your first child. Maybe it was like, you know what, I really want to be in healthcare. You can probably count them on one hand. But
Mhm.
trajectory changers are just that.
Mhm.
They come in, they create a reaction, and our bodies then go, or our minds go into another direction.
Right.
When I listened to that tape, Stephanie, I suppose I can say this to you. It was mind blowing, mind blasting.
Mhm.
Um, this gentleman by the name of Linus Pauling was now explaining to Congress, the 72nd Congress, second session, why he thought disease was manifesting at a higher rate than science was accelerating. And they said, well, they said, how's that possible? And Pauling explained that very simply. And it was a trajectory changer, such a simple, common statement. And I, to this day, there's probably not a day that goes by that I don't think of some aspect of this statement. And here's the statement that he made.
Mhm.
He said, "I'm a two-time Nobel Prize winner, and I'm about to tell you something that you're probably not going to understand, but that's okay. But you asked me here, so if you want the truth, I'll give you the truth. And if you don't want the truth, this is a really good opportunity for you guys to leave. Congress is filled with lawyers and etc. So here's a doctor, like a brilliant scientist, talking to a bunch of, for lack of better words, attorneys,
Mhm.
or at least of that level caliber. And he says, every ailment, every sickness, and every disease can be traced back to an organic trace mineral deficiency." And they said, I mean, it's interesting. Like there was like a silence. I don't know. There was like a ruffling of papers. It was just like an interesting thing. And I even went like, what? I was just kind of like, huh? Like, wait, what did you just? He said, I'll repeat myself. Every ailment, every sickness, and every disease can be traced back to an organic trace mineral deficiency.
Hmm.
So I'm just like, what? Like,
What
what
does
is
that
that?
mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
And he's a very, very intelligent man. Why would this brilliant mind explain something so simplistically? But the interesting thing is I missed one word in there. He said every ailment, every sickness, and every disease can be traced back to an organic trace mineral deficiency. I missed one word. That word was organic.
Right.
So I'm sitting there thinking, you know what I was thinking?
Hmm.
I'm thinking like he meant organic, like pesticide. Like I want to go buy a cucumber or a tomato, and I don't want it to be full of pesticides or chemicals. It's USDA organic.
Right.
It's free of chemicals. It's free of pesticides. It's
That's what
herbicides.
most people would think. Yeah.
Correct. So that's the route I took, and as I listened to it again and again and again, eventually I went back to that word because he never really explained that word, Stephanie. He never said to Congress, "Oh, by the way, let me get into this a little bit more." They were just like kind of baffled and they were confused. I think they took a session break. I think they called him back later and like, "Do you want to reevaluate your statement? Is this the statement you still want to state?" That kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
he said, "No, my statement stands." And then I realized, obviously, a little bit later, he was referring to the second connotation of the word organic. So the word organic to me at that time meant obviously pesticide free, chemical free. I want my fruits and my veggies, and I want them free of all that good, that nasty stuff.
Right.
Second connotation of the word organic means containing carbon.
Hmm.
So interesting, right?
Okay.
So I go, well, okay, later, this is months later after hearing the cassette, but I'm like, I wonder if that's what he meant, containing carbon,
Huh.
because every mineral that I could find was some kind of colloidal substance, something that was based on something inert, something that was synthetic. Colloidals are actually fairly large molecules. They're between 1 and 100 nanometers in particle size. They don't sink to the bottom of the solution. They don't rise to the top. They're suspended.
Okay.
That's the whole concept behind a colloid. Well, as I started studying and realizing that maybe, just maybe, he meant containing carbon, I did something really, I mean, today I can say it was redonkulous, but
I love that word.
I don't use it very often, but it really was. It was like way outside the box. So I went to a couple of my friends and I'm like, guys, look, can you guys just do me a favor? Can you literally like go out to like 9, 12, 15, 18, 20, 30, 40, almost like eventually I ended up like 100 different countries and get me some soil samples. I need soil samples. And these guys are like,
Why?
I
Why?
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, there people, yeah, they were like, we'll get you your soil samples. And if that's what you want, I said, look, this is very, very important. I kept listening to the cassette. I kept going rewind, play, rewind, play, rewind, play. And I was literally just trying to understand and break down his statement. Every ailment, every sickness, every disease can be traced back to an organic trace mineral deficiency. Eventually, I realized that if I got the soil samples, perhaps I could come up with a methodology to break the soil samples down with a process, a technological process. But what I did was very unique, Stephanie. I mean, literally extremely unique. The world said to me two things. Number one, you're probably not going to make it. Number two, it is absolutely impossible scientifically. I mean, to whatever degree that word impossible, but you cannot attach carbon to a mineral. That that you're not going to do. That's not you. Like no, like
Huh.
no, you can't take. So conceptually, let me explain. We are made up of something called carbon.
Mm-hmm.
So we are living beings. We are organic. We are breathing and respirating. So the difference between us and something that's not living and breathing and respirating is that it's made up of, for lack of a better term, I'll say carbonate, something inert. The desk, your microphone, your glasses,
Mm-hmm.
your favorite pet at home, carbon. Your favorite child, carbon. Your favorite plant, carbon. Everything that's living and breathing is made up of carbon. We are about 18% carbon.
Okay.
What that means is that the difference between something that is living and breathing and something that is not is that we contain carbon and it does not.
Okay.
So that's a simple scientific, we need to understand that. So what I thought I would going to try to do is attach carbon to a mineral.
Okay.
But it made no sense to anyone. Like, it was just like, how do you take, we are made up of, I'll break it down, something called methyls, aromatic protonates, heterocyclics, carbonyls, carboxyls, quinones, ketone, ketene like carbonyls. Anyway, this really cool scientific stuff called carbon, we are made up of it. Something that is not, that is inert, does not contain those things. So I wanted to take something that was living, and I wanted to literally attach it to something that was inert. I wanted to bond it.
You wanted to
I want,
create
that's
what
correct.
he was talking about.
That is correct. I
Got it.
wanted to
Okay.
see, because he never explained, and then of course
Right.
he died,
Right.
right? So he never explained what he meant. So it was just like this open statement. So I spent the rest of my life literally studying what he meant. The so the thing that's worth noting is that this is not some get healthy quick story
Hmm.
here that like, oh, so you attached a bunch of carbon to a few minerals, and you just went to 120 pounds. And then, first of all, that took like 15 years to literally get carbon to attach to a mineral.
Wow.
And and then to get that carbon base, that living carbon based substance, to a mineral and attach it and hold it there, and then have it bond, and then have that bond hold,
Hmm.
took years and years and years.
So you've gotten better, right? I'm sitting on the edge of my seat going, okay, when did you get better?
So the interesting thing is, I literally went into my bathtub, and I literally like just started to create extraction processes. I literally just started to take these this organic material, and I create an extraction process from soil.
Okay.
And then as I created an extraction process from soil, then I wanted to attach that to the mineral, and I started ingesting it. and
Okay.
and back in the day, I know this makes no sense to anyone, that's okay, but I used to call it 100% organic, homeostatic, soil-based microcomplexes. Today we call it carbon bond technology.
Right.
But back in the day, I didn't know what to call it. But I literally, the bathtub was like this brownish black substance, which I know today now contained a bunch of humic acid and a bunch of fulvic acid. Anyway, there's this stuff in there that I understand today that
Uh-huh.
I didn't understand then. I literally started ingesting it. And what's interesting is that instead of me, like, every few days I would like lose another half pound, I would literally, like, I don't know, become a little more dehydrated, a little bit more diseased in a sense. I'd become a little more fatigued. My body would begin to shut down even just a little bit more. But instead of all that happening, what happened was really interesting. My body just started maintaining itself. My body literally, instead of losing more weight and becoming more, I lost my computer screen for a second, but it's back.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Sorry, it would just disappeared, but it's back. I literally was just maintaining myself. My body weight, just instead of going from 114 to 113 to 112, I mean, I started holding my weight. I didn't feel good, Stephanie. I
Yeah.
didn't like wake up the next day and go, "Oh my gosh, thank you
It's a
so much, Linus
miracle. Yeah.
Pauling."
Yeah.
But it was a process. It was a slow process, and I kept changing the process in my tub, and I kept changing just how I go about doing the like changing the, not just the process, but how I was ingesting it, and what I was ingesting, and when I was ingesting it. And so I learned a lot. And in that time, I literally became just infatuated with the whole process. And instead of dying, my body was just maintaining itself. And
Wow.
so I would just suck on this liquid, like literally day in and day out. I just would suck on a little. I made ice cubes with it. I sucked on the ice cubes. I would put a little bit under my tongue. The people that were around just thought, "My God, that's crazy. What are you doing?" But I really had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Medicine had nothing for me. My mom had passed from the exact same thing. They couldn't do anything for her.
Right.
I was in a sort of a bad spot, and I had, there was no going back. And if I was successful, then good for me. And if I wasn't successful, well, then, the situation was what it was, and I had to accept that. But basically, months and months into it, I figured out and got better at how I was attaching the carbon to a mineral. Eventually, I was able to attach it. to carbon to over 40 different minerals. At first, the bonds would only hold for like 30 seconds, and then it would just fall apart.
Wow.
And then I would try it again. And Stephanie, I probably had 4,000 failures,
Wow.
maybe more. I mean, it was
Wow.
hundreds and hundreds. This is not some quick, like, it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of failures
Wow.
until one day I was like, I think it's hold. Like I could get it to hold for like 30 seconds to a minute. Then I started ingesting it. And here's the result of all that. Think of it like this. Carbon bond technology is like a revolutionary change in where we are nutritionally, manufacturing, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because what's an easy way to explain this? Okay, here we are. When we go down to the store, when we order something on Amazon, when we walk into Whole Foods, when we go to Sprouts, when we see nutrients, when we see nutrition on the shelves, what we are seeing is, for lack of a better way to say it, is something called synthetic chemical nutrition.
Right.
And you're familiar with that? Well, most of the world is not. So synthetic chemical nutrition is a very common ground. And the reason it's so commonplace, is because it's very inexpensive for manufacturers to create synthetics, right? So when you think of it like this, labs, you can go in, it's like your body wants to get nutrition from the food we eat. What
Mm-hmm.
Pauling did, if we can go back a second, is he explained to Congress, he said, the reason we're where we are today is because before the 1930s, what we did was we did something called bioagriculture.
Okay.
So I'm going to tie it together.
Okay.
But travel back before the 1930s, the farming in the United States especially, and not to mention other worlds as well, they were doing something called crop rotation. So what that meant, So what that meant is the soils take literally between 3,000 and 5,000 years, depending upon what scientists you're talking to. That's a whole nother debate. Did
Mm-hmm.
it take 3,500? Did it take 4,000? Did it take 4,500? Take somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 years for the soils to become saturated with this stuff called organic complexes. So how did the organic complexes get there? The soils became saturated because plants literally would photosynthetically interchange with light, and then they would release their remains into the ground. And over this like period of time, we'll call it 3,000 to 5,000 years, the soils became sort of saturated. So in a sense, little baby ate the remains of mom, and mom and dad died, and this plant material contained this incredible stuff called carbon. Ah, so
Aha.
so Pauling says to Congress, he says, look, after the 1930s, it was really interesting. We had this definitive shift between something called bioagriculture into something called economic-based agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
And in economic-based agriculture, what would happen is the farmer wasn't so concerned about crop rotation. The farmer wanted to get his corn on the cob and his green bean and all the other great nutrients or nutritional foods that he thought he was making out to the consumer, direct to
Right.
market. Didn't want to be subsidized, that's for sure, because there was no money in that. So the farmer was not incentivized. He wanted to get crop planted and as fast as possible and just replant in the same place. The problem with that is this. Over a period of time, somewhere between 1930 and 1940, maybe some people would argue 1950,
Mm-hmm.
depending on who you talk to, but there's a period of time where the farming changing so much literally had extracted out of the ground all of these critical organic complexes, these organic minerals, these mucopolysaccharides, these saccharides, these all these amazing things that the body needs to survive. And this goes back to what Pauling had explained to Congress.
Mm-hmm.
But look, guys, this may be mind-blowing, mind-blasting, but somewhere between the 1930s and the 1950s, all of this happened. And he said, look, you need three things to survive. And then I remember listening to the cassette thinking, where's he going now? Because he was shifting all the time
Mm-hmm.
and changing. And he said, look, you need three things to survive. And he said it again. Everybody just was like, Like, here we go again. Like, what are
Mhm.
you talking about? You need three
Mhm.
things. He asked Congress, he said, what do you think those things are? I mean, I remember listening to the cassette over and over, and you could almost hear people talking out, under their breath, people saying like pizza, you know, things. And Pauling's like, no, you don't need filet or you don't need pizza. You need three things to survive. Number one, you need oxygen,
Mm,
right? If you don't have oxygen, well, you don't have to worry about dinner because it's game over.
right,
Number two, if you don't have water, then you're also in trouble. I mean, you can go 2 to 3 days, but you're also going to be in trouble,
right.
right? After 3 days, you're probably dead. So I've heard people survive 2 to 4, maybe 5 days max, but you're dead. The third thing was mind blowing, mind blasting. Wow, I would never have known that third item. The third thing he said to people that you need to survive and everything else is a luxury, he said it's called an organic mineral.
Mm,
The mineral is the catalyst inside the cell. It creates voltage. It creates, so we are, every thought, every movement of our hands, everything requires combustion. Think of the mineral as like a spark plug. If you have everything in a car, you could have tires and you could have engines, but if you don't have a spark plug, you don't have a catalyst to create an explosion in the cylinder head, which then when you push the gas pedal down, more gas comes in, more explosions, it creates horsepower.
right.
Your body needs that same horsepower.
Interesting.
Well, it's called the adenosine triphosphate. ATP is produced by the cell. And how the cell then produces and utilizes ATP is through the combustion of something like neuroelectrical combustion, which is called a mineral. And he said, if you don't have enough organic minerals, you can't create enough horsepower inside the cell for the cell to function, to replicate, to energize, to heal.
Wow.
And so I'm just like,
I've never heard anybody say it that way, and it makes so much sense. Thank you for saying it that way. That makes so much sense. Okay, so we fast forward a little bit, and
yep,
this you have created the bonds. Will
yes,
you've gotten to the moment where you figured out how to keep them together longer. Tell us
longer.
about that.
So it all goes back to just trying to really save myself. I really just wanted to understand Pauling and what the real problem was and why he was saying the things he was saying, and then
Mhm.
to figure out if he can say those things, that he just didn't give us the solution.
Mm,
But it had never been done before.
yeah.
No one had attached living carbon to a mineral. Why? And the answer is really important, and it answers part of your question.
Uh-huh.
The why is so important. The why is because we as a nation, as a people, should be able to go down to Whole Foods or Sprouts or even to Kroger,
Mhm.
and you should just buy your food. Your food should contain these organic minerals. Why? Because we need, or he said you need three things to survive: oxygen, water, and organic minerals. We got our organic minerals from our food supply, but our foods became hollow after the 1930s, 40s, and 50s.
Right.
So what happened is we started eating foods that were deficient
Mhm.
in these critical organic minerals, and I call them organic complexes, but
Mhm.
really it's combinations of minerals and some other really cool organic stuff. And we need that stuff in our food. And because our food doesn't have that stuff, that's why you're seeing this increase in disease
Right. Okay.
manifestation. And Congress is like, oh, oh, now I see where have you been going all this time. Like they they they're like, oh, so the crop rotation stopped, the economic based farming started, and he said, look, if none of this is really an issue, I mean, to be honest, it's not really an issue. The only technicality is that we would have to wait like 3,000 years. If we didn't have to wait 3,000 years, it wouldn't matter, right? If we
Right.
could regenerate the soil, if we could speed up time. Our biggest problem is that in our lifetimes, our kids' lifetimes, their kids' lifetimes, et cetera, et cetera, we're all in trouble. And the
Right.
reason that we're in trouble in the very near future and into the long term is because if our foods are hollow and we're not getting organic minerals and organic complexes, and our bodies have to have them. So what do? And it's interesting. What the response was mind blowing, as mind blasting as anything else. Stephanie, oh my God, the story gets even better. So if you can follow this, the response from America was, we're going to take a nutrient, or what we think is a nutrient, and we're going to make it in a lab. Oh, please. Oh, just forget the whole corn on the cob. We know you're not going to get it from there. And we're going to just give it to you. We're just going to synthesize it, and then we're going to sell it as a vitamin or a mineral.
Mm.
And we're going to tell the world that, okay, so you don't get it from your food. Well, okay, it
It's
could be worse.
enriched.
It's enriched, it's fortified.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. Think of, I'm going to say this. Here we go. Think of your putting your think of putting your hand up to a mirror,
Okay.
just like that. And you were to look at the mirror, you would see your hand, and you would see what is it? But it's actually technically the mirror image of your hand,
Right.
right? So it's your hand, but it's actually the opposite of your hand. Think of a synthetic chemical nutrient as something similar to that. Maybe here's a better example.
To that reflection of what.
Your hand would be.
Right. It's not the
Your
actual
hand,
hand.
but man, doesn't it look like your hand?
Uh-huh.
Oh, of course it does.
Uh-huh.
But technically, scientifically, medically, it's the mirror image of your hand.
Got it.
Now, maybe I'm just trying to think of a better. Here's another example. When I was young, I went into like Kmart and I would buy these fake shoes. Why I would buy fake shoes? Because I couldn't afford a good pair of floor shines. But everybody knows that if you go, excuse me, if you go into and buy fake shoes, they actually look identical in a sense to the real one. Correct?
Right.
I mean, they really do.
Right.
The difference is that at the end of the day, my feet were soaked. At the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, like 3 weeks later, they were cracking. I could condition them like with leather because they're not leather.
Right.
And at the end of the day, my feet stunk. My foot was soaked. But what's interesting is they look just as good.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'm so sorry to say this. In some ways, they look better because they can make the imperfections exact in each shoe.
Right.
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 And if you
Right.
compare that to a leather shoe, well, the cow wasn't exactly the same. So maybe you have some imperfections. Point is this: huge difference between something leather from floor shine and something that is inert, synthetic, or chemical based. And here's why. The thing over here that's leather contains what?
Carbon.
Remnant of carbon.
Yes.
The thing that's over here does not contain any carbon whatsoever. It's inert. So it looks just like the real thing. It has the components. It looks like it. I don't know if it smells like it, but it has even a rough feel to it. Like they've gotten so good, but there's a huge difference to the body. When you, for example, bite into a banana,
Mm-hmm.
banana has carbon-based nutrition, organic complexes, and certain organic minerals, and the body sees it as carbon-based. Why? Because we're made up of carbon.
Mm.
When you ingest a synthetic chemical nutrient, the brain says, well, like, oh my God, it looks just like, oh, please, I want that. I do. I want that.
Mm.
No, I got it. I'm going to take that. I'm going to try to get that into my cell. And what happens is it's such a large molecule.
Uh-huh.
The mitochondria and the cytoplasm of the cell can only accept a very small piece. Here's what we've learned over the last 30 plus 40 years is that we may actually be better off with nothing than ingesting synthetic chemical nutrition.
Mm.
We now know that.
I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe that wholeheartedly.
And this is going to shock you as well. For example, what's another? Remember back in the day, the stuff called Similac?
Yeah. Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. So Similac was basically saying to the world, look, a baby doesn't need to breastfeed anymore. Take the Similac. It's a synthetic product made in a lab. And look, it's just as good as as the breast milk. What we realized is that it does not contain colostrum, it
Right.
does not contain transfer factor, and we saw an increase in immunologic aberrance in children. In fact, their immune systems were dysfunctional. And
Mm.
what Similac tried to do was sell the world on the fact that synthetic chemical colostrum was just as good as the real one. And it's the
Golly.
same thing. It does not contain carbon. It was all inert.
Right.
So carbon became and is the basis of life.
Mm.
And carbon should also be the basis of nutrition.
Right.
The
Right.
things that we are ingesting, unfortunately, are synthetic chemical nutrients. It is like going down to Kmart or Target or whatever and buying a synthetic chemical shoe and
Right.
saying, well, my foot's going to feel the exact same. But you and I both know
It
you could
won't.
invest in a good pair of floor shines and recondition them. They could theoretically, I'm not saying they would, but they could theoretically last a couple hundred years.
Right. Right.
Your body knows your foot doesn't smell at the end of the day. It's absorbing the moisture. You can condition it. It's made up of carbon. Your body understands that. So here's what happens over a long period of time. And here's the sad part of the whole story is that people wake up one day and they were feeling great yesterday. And then one day they wake up and they're like, I'm taking my multivitamin. I
Mm-hmm.
actually eat, I eat fairly well. I, I sleep pretty decent, but I'm not feeling good. And the reason for that is now we know synthetic chemical nutrients or anything else that's in the environment that's inert
Right. Which
are
there's a lot of
absolutely
that now.
right. And we're exposed to it. So whether it's mycotoxins or pollutants in the air or carbon dioxides or a small amount of pesticides or herbicides in our salad, or for that matter, synthetic chemical nutrition.
Mm.
So everything that I know of on the shelf is all synthetic chemical nutrition, all manufactured and made in a lab. And unfortunately, that synthetic chemical nutrient has a molecular size that's massive. It can be infused into the cell, not very quickly, but the cell will try to absorb it. It can't utilize it. It can't be absorbed. The sad part is now we know that what the cell can't use will actually be stored by the body, perhaps in extracellular space, interstitial fluid, and fatty tissue,
Mm.
and the body has no physiologic mechanism for releasing it.
For releasing
So
it. Wow. So
it's
it cannot detox that waste
no,
that comes
no,
from this. Wow.
no. So it begins to all right. So now the light bulb's starting to go on. Like, wait a minute. So you're saying we might even be better off without it? I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting part is that after 20 some years, I was able to take living carbon and
Mm-hmm.
attach it to a mineral. Then I figured out how to attach it to over 40 minerals.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was able to eventually figure out how to attach it to over 400 different nutrients.
Wow.
And the interesting thing is, one, shouldn't have to do any of that.
Well,
Like, none of that. Why? Because I should just be able to bite into my corn on the cob or my potato, and I should be able to get the organic nutrients that my body sees and utilizes.
mm-hmm.
But I can't because
Right.
our foods are stripped, because they're hollow, because they're void
Right.
of all these critical organic minerals and complexes.
Right.
So what I've done is I've just said, okay, I figured out how to attach carbon to nutrients so that when it's ingested into the body, it's literally ingested in under 18 seconds. That is
Wow.
unheard of in the United States.
Wow.
So I'm a big fan of liposomal technologies I love all of this technology. It's all rapid infusion technology. Even liposomal technology is somewhere between 2.5 and 4 minutes
Yeah.
to get it in. It's all attached with a fat using by lipid. It's a lipid-based process. Some people are very sensitive to lipids, but I love it. I love the process. I love liposomal. We are 50 years ahead. Um,
Yeah.
we are literally in the bloodstream past the epithelium in under 18 seconds. We are
Wow.
systemically hydrolyzed in the body. And when the mitochondria and the cytoplasm of the cell sees carbon bond technology, when it sees or a nutrient bound to carbon, it says, oh, Oh,
Can you
well,
imagine like that cell just breathing a sigh of relief and saying, "Oh my gosh, something I can use."
like immediately. So it's a very, very tiny molecular size and weight. It's
Yeah,
smaller than an RBC, rather than a synthetic chemical nutrient that looks and smells a little bit like it, but it has no carbon in it whatsoever.
right.
The body tries to utilize it, but it can't. So it says, like, I'm being tricked. Oh
Yeah,
no, I can use this. Let me try again. Oh
yeah.
no, 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 no. I'll try again.
So
No,
it's
no. But it
wasting my by the way, it's wasting
correct.
energy,
Wasting energy.
voltage,
And
trying to get
unfortunately,
things,
yes.
you
Yes.
know.
And then the body can't utilize it, so it doesn't know what to do with it. So it hangs on to it. So
Yeah,
the body's like, well, I can't rid itself of it. We use it's called the cytochrome P452 pathway, which is mostly in the colon, but is your major detoxification pathway. And that's a very critical pathway.
yeah,
It is one that we use every day to detoxify.
right.
Unfortunately, the body has no physiologic mechanism for detoxifying inert material.
Wow.
So most of it ends up being stored in the body in some capacity. CBT does two things that are absolutely different than anything else on the planet. Number one, carbon based nutrition and carbon bond technology will carry nutrients into the bloodstream, into the mitochondria and the cytoplasm of the cell in under 18 seconds.
Wow.
Number two, this is the part, this is the reason that I'm, at least I think, I think this is literally the reason that I'm here today,
Okay.
is the second part. The first part's amazing.
Mhm.
The second part I didn't realize till much later,
Mhm.
but that it carbon has an enormous affinity for carbonate. So
Okay.
things that are, so the pesticides, the the chemicals, the heavy metals that are have accumulated in my body, the mercury, the lead, the cadmium, the arsenic, long list of
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
What would be a good way to explain this? Okay, I'll try this and see if you understand. Do you remember, like, when you went into the mall and they had like that jewelry that coated with like gold, like it's metal, but
Uh-huh.
then they would put a gold sort
Oh,
of
yeah, like
coating,
gold plated.
gold plated. So it's like
Yeah,
a gold, like, and underneath it is metal.
sure.
So it's not good. So you don't want that metal against your skin, and you want to, make sure your body sees it as a real mineral. So what do? They gold plate it. They put 14, or maybe it's 18 karat gold around. I don't know how long that lasts. I'm not attesting to anything like that, but I know
Sure.
for the first month, when you stick it on your skin, the metal underneath it certainly is not touching your skin. It's
Right.
the gold,
Right.
right? Ah,
Right.
think of that. Maybe this is a good example. I don't know, but think of that. Think of carbon bond technology similar to that.
Okay.
It will go in, it will see like inert things, synthetics, toxins, heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides, chemicals. God forbid you're a drinker. I don't know what's accumulated in your tar from cigarette, all this stuff,
Uh-huh.
stuff that you don't want in your body.
Yeah.
And it literally goes over the top of it and bonds to it. It has an enormous affinity to attach itself to inert material.
Okay.
And after attaching itself to inert material, it polymerizes and it bonds.
Okay.
And once it's bond, the outside of it, like in a sense, in a similar connotation, is similar to the gold plating. Now the body doesn't see the inert material. It's like, oh, I see something that's made up of carbon.
And I can do
Oh,
something with it.
I think that's what. Oh my God! So it's made up of the same stuff. You know what? I'm going to get rid of that. I don't need that.
Wow.
It knows the body is brilliant.
Yeah.
Our brain cells, our mind, our detoxification system, all carbon based.
Yeah.
When you eat a banana, for example, there are small amounts of mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic. The FDA or any other DA doesn't call you up and say, well, don't eat a banana because it's got tiny trace amounts of mercury, lead, cadmium, and arsenic. Don't touch that.
Right.
Don't eat. No, and the reason is because it's bound to carbon. So if you ingest it and the body doesn't need it, it's like, oh, okay. So it just gets rid of it. It can
Right.
actually utilize like organically bound arsenic can actually be utilized in the body because it's like a cousin of all everything else that the body needs. And it says like I can utilize that. It's made up of the same living material that I'm made up of.
I see. I
So
see.
carbon goes after, bonds to, polymerizes to this inert material, this carbon bond technology, and literally begins the process, and that's a journey in of itself, of releasing and relieving the body of all the synthetic chemical nutrition,
Wow.
all of the stuff
Yeah.
that we have been exposed to. And in my case, it was obviously combinations of multiple things. There is genomic characteristic. I
Hmm.
obviously had that. There is some exposure, perhaps, that I was exposed to, maybe at the same time my mom was exposed
Sure.
as a
Or
young child,
epigenetically.
epigenetically. But my body knew, like, it has a biomemory indicator, a BMI, a body memory indicator. And my body literally knew what to do once I started ingesting carbon based, organically bound minerals and nutrients. My body began to, it wasn't fast. It wasn't like in a day. It wasn't in a week. It wasn't in a month, but it was a process. And over a period of weeks and months, Stephanie, I didn't go from 115 to 114. And actually, I probably did, but I didn't stay there.
Right.
Then I would maybe come back up a little bit. And maybe then I would dip down a little bit. But instead of dying, I maintained. I could hold a little liquid in my mouth. I could, after months, my doctors were like, "You're still here." And
We can't explain it. Isn't that amazing?
I
Isn't that amazing?
I began ingesting more and more. Of course, I changed it 1,000 times since then.
Sure.
Back then, it was like 10,000 milligrams per liter of carbon. Today, we're at over 144,500
Wow.
milligrams.
Wow. Wow.
But it's a lifetime to attach living carbon to a mineral and then to these nutrients. And all of that is a shame. Shame on us.
Mm,
Why? Because we should be able to go to our potato and our corn on the
sure.
cob and everything, the green beans, and just get it from our food.
But we
But
can't.
we can't.
We can't. There's
We
no
can't.
way. There's no way.
No.
So,
And that's
okay.
the
So then we
cumulative.
take this technology that you have lovingly and painstakingly created, and I'm certain that there is a vast array of case studies that you have shown and studies that you have done on this technology that can share with our listener the types of stories of change, let's say stories of change
That,
that's
that's where
beyond
this comes
yours.
in.
Hey, look at that, there's a book,
Yeah.
y'all, there's a book.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
book. It's this is the first edition. The second edition comes out next week, literally like
fantastic.
next Friday. It's another 100 pages added to the book, but the book is a culmination of 30 years of work and
Yeah.
research and how I have utilized and applied carbon bond technology into hundreds of case studies and the science. I dive into the
Love
science
it.
of carbon bond technology and why CBT is here. And I want to remind you, and everybody else for that matter, none of this really would mean anything, Stephanie, if like we just didn't have to wait 3,000 years.
Sure, but
It,
we do,
we
and
do.
it,
So
there's this idea that maybe somebody decided at some time along the line that you were meant to do this. You were meant to be right here. There was a problem that was created, and you were meant to come and solve it. So I think that it is absolutely fantastic. By the way, we will make sure that whatever link is needed in order for you to order your copy of Dr. Drucker's book, Carbon Cure, is in the show notes of this podcast so that you can get your hands on this. And then the second version will be able to do that as well. So, all right. So we have this solution. Tell me what you foresee in the future of our healthcare, specifically with root cause prevention. What do you see happening and what can we do about it?
Great question. Wow. Healthcare, 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 healthcare.
Yeah.
What an interesting, I think Al's probably the better, the better person because Al has dedicated his life to mentoring and to helping us all understand the devastation that
Yeah.
we have faced with regard to the lack of or the disintegration of healthcare in the United States.
Right.
So, the first thing that comes to my mind when you say that to me is how critically important, how unbelievably focused we need to be because prevention then becomes the number one space and place for us, not just as a community, but we have to reach out globally. We have to have unity so that
Hmm.
we can create a community so that we can talk globally to people, planet, and purpose.
Mm.
And my whole life's work is based upon three words: people, planet, purpose.
Mm.
And so we are unfortunately in a time and a place, in a space and time and place where healthcare has become astronomical. The cost is
Mm.
astronomical. The return to the consumer is less and less and less, meaning the copays, the deductibles, everything just continuing to rise and rise and rise.
Correct.
Not only that, it's based upon a system that is based upon one thing, which is either surgical or pharmaceutical.
Hmm.
And the real truth, the real sadness of it is it just kind of goes back to what Pauling was saying.
Hmm.
Pauling was literally trying to wake up Congress and like, guys, I get all your surgeries. And these guys are like, yes, sir. And I get all your medicines and I get all your drugs and I love it. And okay, mwah. But you haven't addressed the problem. And the
Right.
real problem was in the soil and blah, 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 et cetera, so forth. So today we have multifaceted problems that need attention. We need attention here locally, and it needs attention, community. It needs attention globally, and we have to solve it in perhaps another way. I love what Al is doing. I love the idea of creating teams or groups of us that are all synergistic in our desires to want to create prevention first. And then if there is a problem, then to go into the curative effects of what we can do to apply medicines.
Sure.
In this case, obviously, carbon is a humongous overlooked answer. And it says how a forgotten molecule could be the missing link to healing you. It's
Oh.
it's interesting because carbon actually has a negative connotation. And
Mm.
what I mean by that is most people don't even know they're made up of carbon.
Right.
For example, Evian, I was just drinking a bottle. Was it Evian? Yeah, I think it was Evian. And on the back of the bottle, it said something like, I think it said carbon neutral. Like they were just very proud of the fact that they're carbon neutral.
The carbon footprint is
The
new.
carbon,
Right.
that's right. But to people, most of the people, they're thinking, oh, carbon. So carbon is not so. So carbon's not good. Oh, so
Mm.
carbon's actually bad. So what it does is it creates the negative connotation
Hmm.
around carbon. What it really should say is carbon dioxide neutral,
Right. That's the
right?
truthful statement. Yes.
So that would be a much more accurate or a much more just for having the sake of this conversation, people in general who are studying or looking at the carbon footprint, they're looking at carbon dioxide. But for a bottle of water, to put that on the bottle of water and to say carbon neutral gives the connotation that somehow carbon is negative, but yet everything that's living, breathing, and respirating is made of carbon. So
Right.
the connotation is there. But I think to answer the question is that we need to come together globally.
Mm.
We need to come together and create unity, synergism, understanding, compassion. We need to have open our minds to create awareness and understanding and education about where we are as not just people, but as a society, as a community. And I think the real solution, Stephanie, I mean, I guess I'll go out on a limb and I'll say this,
Hmm.
but I think the real solution is that we need to address it at the root cause. And
Right.
in order to address it at the root cause, we would have to do what? We would have to go back into the ground, right? And we would have to figure out how to resaturate the ground with organic material complexes and nutrients And then we would have to let the farmers come along, plant their crops, plant their seeds, plant all of the things that we eat. And then we would have to slowly start the infusion
Mm-hmm.
of this food supply back into the food supply. And then we would obviously eat these foods. And then we would start the slow journey of receiving this organic material, organic complexes and minerals back into our bodies the way nature intended.
Ended.
And here's the answer. After 30 years of researching, developing, starting again and again and again, and of reapplying and retrying, I'm sort of back into my bathtub again, sort of reliving
Mm-hmm.
that. We have created a technology that's a spin-off of CBT, of carbon bond technology, and it's called Agramax.
Okay.
And what Agramax is it's the spin-off of CBT. So now we're going to be able to put back into the soil in about 90 days what took Mother Nature between 3,000 and 5,000 years to create for us.
Huh.
So it is here. This
Wow.
technology is here. It is my life's work. I discuss it in detail in the appendices of Carbon Cure, but that technology is literally here today. And we are maybe 3 to 4 months from releasing Agramax into the world. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it to the farming community.
Mm-hmm.
When I say give, that's a funny word.
Yeah.
We're
Offer it.
hopefully, or yes, we're going to offer it to the government and to other countries. And for the first time in the history of this country, we will be able to put back into the soil, and we don't have to wait 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years so that the farmers can come along. They don't have to crop rotate. They
Mm.
can go economic based, economic based, economic based, but they will be able to plant their seed, receive all the benefit of all those organic complexes as if we had waited 3,000 to 5,000 years so that the foods can now be once remineralized, renutrified,
Wow.
and the bodies now we can ingest those foods the way Mother Nature had intended us to do. But the point is, it's here. Carbon bond technology is revolutionizing how we farm in the future, our nutrients that we're intaking into our bodies, how our bodies receive that nutrition. We're not taking in synthetic chemical nutrients. We are saying no. It may look like vitamin A, it may look like vitamin C, it may look like vitamin D, but either, you know what? True or false question, either it is or it isn't. And that fake leather shoe could look like the Florsheim, it could smell a little bit like the Florsheim, it can feel, even to some degree, texturally like the Florsheim, but at the end of the day, under a
It's
microscope, it is not.
it is not.
There's a massive difference between what was that? What's that diamond?
The cubic zirconia.
Yeah, zirconian. It is it's something that's very similar, I guess, in look and feel to a real diamond. But at the end of the day, the people with the microscopes can look underneath that and they can see how it's technically and genetically, and molecularly, biologically not the same thing.
Right.
So
Right.
the bodies are very similar. It may look, feel, and smell like vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, biotin, and all these other things that we need. But the body really technically has no idea what to do with it. And what's interesting, I'll share this with you, is that back in the day, I wrote a bunch of white papers and I'm surviving. And people are just like, what?
Yeah.
My mom wasn't so lucky. So she
Mhm.
passed, obviously, when I was very young. But to you, Mom, by the grace of God, with all my heart, thank you. But I took my white papers to medical communities all over the United States. Most of these medical communities, you know, in this country, if you have something, you need to present it. And if it's presented and they find a flaw, we live in a society where they're very unforgiving.
Yeah. That's
So
true.
whether it's the American Medical Association or the American Naturopathic Medical Association, or whether it's the osteopath. These people are very unforgiving groups of people. I brought my research to the American Naturopathic Medical Association, and they just basically said, that's impossible.
Mm. And yet it is not. And yet it is not.
So I kept presenting and I kept presenting. And I eventually, they were just like, wow. And today, of course, many years later, I'm the president of all the naturopathic doctors in the United States. And so they have embraced this technology, see it as something that is changing lives and helping people, planet, and purpose.
Yeah.
And Stephanie, at the end of the day, I am literally nothing more or less than a servant. I am here to serve. That is my job. That is my calling. That is the only thing that I wake up and care about. If this phone rings here once and somebody's like, oh my gosh, my tumor is now 1/3 the size.
Mm-hmm.
My cancer molecules are 2/3 less. My autoimmune disease is slowly resolving. The phones here is the biggest gift from God and from Jesus. It is a gift of gift of gifts of gifts. And the only thing I can say is if it helps one person, one human being, it was worth the whole journey.
Which clearly it has, because you have book 2 on the way of sharing with us of all of these case studies, all of these stories of change, all of these beautiful positive things that are coming from this journey of you and your unrelenting desire to make this bond happen. So thank you very much for all of the work, all of the blood, sweat, tears, energy, love that you've put into what you are doing today. And I cannot wait to share all of this with people, whether they're listening right now or the people that we share with later. Please go check out what Dr. Drucker has created, because it really can be the difference of turning that boat around for yourself and putting your rudder in the right direction. So, Dr. Drucker, thank you so much for sharing as much as you have today. I know this is a very personal story for you, and for you to be as vulnerable as you have today with us. I really appreciate it. And please, guys, go to these links and check out what it is that he's doing, because it could just be what you need.
Anything that we can do every day in every way to make a difference, even that much.
Yeah.
We will continue to not just survive, but we want to help people thrive.
And I can see it.
And that's our love. That's our life. That's our passion. It's a gift to serve. So I am here to serve any way that I can with my heart, and anything that I can do along the way to make that better for anyone. That's why we're here. Carbon Cure is hopefully a bridge to help at least open some eyes, create some interest, some understanding, like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Did we get told a bunch of stories? There's more to all of this than maybe what the average person understands.
Right.
We just want to help educate. And
it's all about the education and empowerment. That's what we're here for.
Right. Help us detoxify and get well.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for giving everything you have. And we'll have all the show notes for people to check out. Have a great day.
You bet. Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate it.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Change Life Destiny podcast. If you loved what you heard, share it with a friend and follow us for more bold conversations and breakthrough ideas. Ready to take the next step? Visit changelifedestiny.com to join the movement. See you next time, and keep diving in, learning, and leading the change.